Good morning, everyone. So today is our Saturday's class. So Yog Darshan, Rishi Patanjali. And we all know it's in a sutra form. So every sutra is very concise and very terse. So that's why it takes some time to go through all these sutras. So, but before we get to that, let's do some prayers so that our mind is fully focused to absorb this deep knowledge. ॐ गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुविष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितृवरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति 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 ॐ. So last Saturday we looked at in chapter 2, which is a Sadhna Pad, verse number 30 and 31 now. So he described those 5 yams for us. Ahimsa, Satya, Aste, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. These are the 5 yams. And Rishi Patanjali said they are not affected by the factors of class, place, time, circumstance. They are the great vows universally if somebody wants to attain the final goal of this life. No matter who we are, we got to follow these. Ahimsa, Satya, Aste, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. Okay, all 5. So that is what yoga sadhana is. That is the very first step on the ladder of yoga sadhana. Now in the next verse, Rishi Patanjali is introducing the 5 niyams also. So this is the second step on this ladder. Let's look at those 5 also. Shauch, Santosh, Tapah, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhanani, Niyama. These are called niyams, observances. Shauch means purity, cleanliness, the condition in which light shines. And we are here after the light which we are. We want that light to shine. Santosh, contentment, satisfaction. Lack of wanting, lack of craving. Tapaha, austerity. Standing against sense cravings. Tap. Swadhyaya, study of the scriptures. And after studying the scriptures, doing the self-reflection, got to learn to study the self also. So scriptures give us all these guidelines. Are we walking on these guidelines or not? Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya. But without knowing the principles, we cannot really check ourselves. So that's why studying the scriptures is utmost important for a student. Swadhyaya. Ishwar Pranidhan. Ishwar, we have learned earlier also, the highest divinity, protector, guide, primordial master. That's called Ishwar. Pranidhanani means complete surrender. Offering our actions and the fruits of actions to this Ishvara. So, which is a surrender to that highest divinity, Ishwar Pranidhan. Having trust in it. Niyam. Niyam is and over here it's a plural, niyama, because there are 5 of them. So these are the observances not to be ignored. So purity, contentment, austerity, self-study, trustful surrender to Ishwar are the observances. So 5 yams and the 5 niyams. And these niyams we have already looked at in the beginning of this chapter. When Rishi Patanjali talked about the Kriya Yoga, he said Tapa Swadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhan. Those are the 3 elements in the Kriya Yoga, according to Rishi Patanjali. So in these 2 sutras, the preceding 2 actually, we see the yams. It's like a refraining ourselves from violence, lying, stealing, misusing the senses, hoarding material and emotional possessions. So that's what he talked about. So now he is describing the 5 niyams in a very beautiful way, in a simple language where we can understand it. So he is really laying the foundation for the remaining 6 limbs of yoga with this. So we do want to climb up. We want to do the meditation. We want to reach the samadhi. But if the foundation is not strong enough, we will slip back. So that's why he's paying so much attention to this. He just wants us to practice this, understand it and practice also. Okay. So Shauch, let's look at that one quickly, even though you know all this, but let's look at it. Shauch. Shauch is of 2 kinds, external and internal. Maintaining high standards of hygiene, purifying our living space, keeping our body free of toxins. These are the examples of the external shauch, external purification. Internal purification involves keeping our mind relatively free of karmic impressions and also the inner unrest propelled by them. Okay, so internal shauch. So we got to take care of both because we live in this world, outer world. We do our duties in this outer world, but there's a whole big world which is internal world. Is that clean? Do we get disturbed with everything in this world, external world? Do we just let it come in? Or can we just keep a little closed gate over there, not to let everything in? Shauch. Santosh. Not desiring more than we have is called santosh. And again, this is a contentment which is both a mental state and a process of being happy with what we have. Without contentment, we will never be able to slow the ever-spinning wheel of karma sanskar chakra. Otherwise, this every action, it has a impression, and impression becomes into the further thought wave, and then we do more actions, and then more, just keep on going this. Contentment, santosh, is the one which can put a halt to it. On our mind, we have the impressions. They motivate us to engage in actions. And that in turn further strengthen the mental impressions. So santosh really forces us to look at it, slow down this cycle. And tap is withstanding the pain caused by the pressure of the senses and our self-imposed resistance to that pressure. Tap. But we got to see that tap is not only at the food level. It's every sense, all the senses. We got to do the tap. Until we reach the highest, there is a constant tug of war between the good and the pleasant, between our discrimination and our desires, between the forces of surrender and the forces of attachment. When we cultivate the capacity to withstand this pain and we adhere to our resolution, that is tapa. Tap is a big part of a yogic practice. Tap. We got to look at it. Am I living like a tapasvi or not? If you are a serious yoga student. Swadhyay, that involves studying spiritually uplifting scriptures or even meditating on a sacred mantra. The study of the scriptures connects us with the experiences of previous seekers. And meditation empowers us with the direct experience. Sure, we got to learn from the teachers of the past, but we don't want to stay just there. We want to experience it too. So meditation on that. So together, these two experiences demolish our doubts and free us from fear. Because otherwise, this fear is a big obstacle on the path of this union. Fear. Extremely negative. And surrendering our actions and their fruits to Ishwar, to that primordial teacher, is Ishwar Pranidhan. So it really means maintaining constant awareness of the truth, that a higher reality is always with us. Ishwar doesn't move away from us. Only our mind fools us. It is a surrender that we are not subject to decay and death. Through all these practices, we can experience this immortality, which is our birthright. So surrender to Ishwar means seeing that the karmic factors forcing us to remain caught in the cycle of birth and death are dissolving. In fact, Ishwar Pranidhan is a state of freedom from doubt and fear. The more faith we have, the less fear there is. If there's no fear, there's no pain, there's no suffering. So we got to increase our love for God. So through trustful surrender to Ishwar, we succeed in trusting our mind inward. And we can attain freedom from all the obstacles. All those kleshas which we talked about earlier, they can be removed with this Ishwar Pranidhan. So these 5 yams and 5 niyams, they are very subtle actually. On the surface, they seem to constitute a set of yogic ethics. But when we do a deeper analysis, we see that each of these restraints and observances is an independently powerful practice. So instead of getting overwhelmed with 10 of these, my suggestion is work on it one at a time. See if you can heighten that practice. It might take a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, doesn't matter. Because once one is strengthened, the others it will be easier to strengthen too. Start with the easy one for you and work on it. Because mastering any one of them will accelerate our quest for samadhi. And disregarding any of them will prevent us from moving forward. Okay, so work on them. And how to master these powerful practices and cultivate these great virtues is the subject of the next 2 sutras. Let's look at what Rishi Patanjali says in verse number 33. Vitark badhne pratipaksh bhavanam. Vitark means afflicting thoughts. Thoughts full of doubt and contradictions. Or you can call it disturbing thoughts or painful thoughts and feelings. So that's vitark. Badhne means blocking or checking or arresting. That is badhne. So vitark badhne means arrest afflicting thoughts or block thoughts which are full of conflict. Our real nature is joy, bliss. When we don't feel that, we don't see the joy. We don't see the light coming through. That is a vitarka. So, vitark badhne, arrest afflicting thoughts. Pratipaksha. So, how do we do it? Pratipaksh. Pratipaksh means counteracting, opposite, belonging to the other side. Bhavna means thinking, contemplating, or act of willful thinking. See, normally we just keep on thinking every which way mind goes. But when we willful think, the opposite. So to arrest afflicting thoughts, cultivate thoughts opposed to them. Because we know as long as we have anger and greed, and as long as we are confused about the motivation behind our actions, we will have a negative mind. And as long as the 5 afflictions persist, negative tendencies will flow through our mind. 5 afflictions were what? Avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh. You are very familiar with those. Because most of us have strong sanskars of these afflictions, we know from experience that negative thoughts dominate our mind more easily than the positive ones. Otherwise, there's a lot of positive is happening, but our mind keeps on taking us towards that negative. Our tendency to compete with others, to conquer and attempt to eliminate them, is stronger than our tendency to collaborate with others, to support them, or even embrace them. The afflictions are extremely subtle, and at the same time, they are deeply entrenched. In those previous sutras, Rishi Patanjali told us that these afflictions are always present in our mind. Sometimes they are fully active, sometimes they are moderately active. And sometimes they could be dormant also, but they are present. Because when they are dormant, we are not aware of them. We think they don't even exist. When they are fully active, they dominate us so completely that our sense of discrimination is swept away. It's almost like we feel that we are under their influence very strongly. And then the little right thought comes in our mind, and we think that we need to transform them, those negative tendencies. And there are numerous negative tendencies powerful enough to agitate our mind and disturb our inner balance. So in this sutra, the example of violence to describe the process of transforming negative tendencies and replacing them the positive with the positive ones. Because we know that violence is clearly destructive. Where the violence comes from, because we talked about last week also, the violence in human beings, it's so predominant. Violence springs from fear, one of the fundamental afflictions. So according to this sutra, the practice of non-violence requires us to arrest our violent tendencies by cultivating thoughts opposite to violence. And that is pratipaksha. However, if the process of non-violence is to be effective in counteracting violence, we must first describe and outline it clearly and methodically, because violent thoughts always precede a violent act. So an act of non-violence will be effective only if it is preceded by non-violent thoughts. That's why thoughts are considered the father of the actions. So violence is an active phenomena, and non-violence is mistakenly thought to be passive, simply the absence of violence. But passive non-violence has no power to extinguish the fire of violence. So non-violence must be as active as violence itself. How do we practice this? Because we got to understand, because violence is not just only physical violence, there's a violence in our thoughts, violence in our words. How do we practice it? We got to see that before we commit a violent act, violent thoughts run through our mind. Somebody could be in a business, there's a business partner. Business partner has been diverting money from the company's accounts. Almost immediately, this thought is accompanied by other thoughts. That I trusted this person for 5 years or for many years, and I thought he was my friend. And I have done a great deal for him. I never imagined that he would steal from me. So those thoughts come. What does it really mean, those thoughts? Deep down, the meaning is that I am good and he is bad. Because I did so much good for him. And it could be in any relationship, not just between the business partners. Very easily we say, I am right and he is wrong. From this arises the desire to punish, which is laced with the desire for vengeance. We are no longer interested in justice, and eliminating the culprit is now our goal. We want to hurt the person even more than what he or she did. Because at this point, violence begins to manifest in our speech and action. In the conventional practice of non-violence, we are not led to entertain a stream of structured, organized, non-violent thoughts. For example, when someone slaps us on the right cheek, we are told to offer the left one also. And we think that this is practicing non-violence. But this approach does not free us from that pain, nor does it purify our mind. That's why we need to design a system of practice which neutralizes the force of violence, step by step and point by point. In violence, the mind is churning out negative thoughts involuntarily. We know that. To practice non-violence, we have to turn our mind to churn out positive thoughts voluntarily. We accomplish this by the methodical practice of contemplation. To continue the previous example, we have to remind ourselves that life is too precious to be consumed by loss and gain, by friends and enemies. I have already lost what was lawfully mine. Now I am allowing myself to lose my inner peace and happiness. And understanding that this is a greater loss than losing a portion of my material wealth. This is called Pratipaksh Bhavana. That does not mean that you don't take any legal action. That doesn't mean you sit back and just accept. but not getting mind involved in the negativity. And these occurrences are commonplace. Remembering that everybody has some strengths and also the weaknesses. So in worldly matter, I will do what needs to be done, but never at the cost of losing the pristine nature of my mind. Remember, yoga sadhana is the sadhana for the mind. We got to remember, constantly remember that this mind is the one which is going to take us to the next place. Maneva manushyanam karnam bandh moksha. Not our bank accounts, not how many people we know, now not how beautiful our body is and where we live. It's our mind which is going to be the deciding factor. So in worldly matters, do what needs to be done, but never at the cost of losing the pristine nature of your mind. We got to remember to adhere to the higher virtues of my heart. This, and there could be similar contemplations to cool that heat of violence. And that will help us conserve our mental energy for higher pursuits. It could be losing your loved ones. It's not only the material wealth. Sometimes it could be you have lost someone very close to you. You've got to contemplate. Use this wisdom to keep your mind calm, mind peaceful. So, Pratipaksh Bhavana. That is the technical term Rishi Patanjali is using for us to remember. Pratipaksh. In every situation, what could be the opposite of what I am thinking? Because the way I am thinking is not going to help me. I got to find the opposite way. And in the next sutra, Rishi Patanjali offers guidelines for designing contemplative practices further. So these two verses, 33 and 34, he is giving us the practices to nullify the afflicting thoughts. We don't want any afflictions. We don't want any kleshas. We are on the path of peace, the path of union. Vitarkaha hinsa adyaha krit karit anumodita. लोभ क्रोध मोह पूर्वकः मृदु मध्याधिमात्रः दुख ज्ञान अनंत फला इति प्रतिपक्ष भावनम. This is one of the longer sutras. Vitarka again means afflicting thoughts, thoughts full of doubt and contradictions, painful thoughts and feelings. So vitarka, hinsa adya, violence, etc. See, adi means etc. Violence, etc. Krit means done. Karit means made to do. Anumodita means consented. Lobh means greed. Krodh is anger. Moh means delusion or confusion. Purvakaha, preceded by. Mridu, mild or gentle. Madhya, intermediate. Adhimatraha, exceedingly intense. Dukh is pain or suffering. Agyan, ignorance, misunderstanding, or avidya, agyan. Anant, endless. Phala, results or fruits. Iti means thus. Pratipaksh, opposite, counteracting, belonging to the other side. Bhavanam, thinking. Thinking, not just a involuntary thinking, willful thinking. Bhavanam. Or you can say contemplating. So violence and the others are afflicting thoughts. Okay. So hinsa adya are vitarka. So violence and the others are afflicting thoughts. We put these thoughts into action by ourselves. So we got to take responsibility for it. Often we say, that person made me angry. No. Take responsibility. Or people even use the word, anger comes to me. We create anger. It doesn't come to us from outside. So we put these thoughts into action by ourselves, through others, or by implied consent. But we are the one who give the permission, though. These thoughts are propelled by greed, anger, or confusion. They are mild, intermediate, or intense. And we nullify these afflicting thoughts by realizing they bear unending fruit of pain and ignorance. So this is how we counter them, remembering that they bear unending fruits of pain, suffering, and ignorance. So in this sutra, Rishi Patanjali is outlining the dynamics of afflicting thoughts and also the destructive actions resulting from them. So that's how he's laying the groundwork for a contemplative practice to nullify afflicting thoughts for us. And again, he's using the example of violence. And he tells us that these negative tendencies reside in our mind and emerge as feelings, bhavna. And as we entertain them, these feelings gain momentum. And not only that, they don't stop there, they demand action. That somebody did something to me, I better do something bad. That's how they gain momentum. And they demand action, and we comply with their demands through these three different ways, according to Rishi Patanjali. By involving ourselves directly in an act of violence, because he is taking the example of violence, or by we incite others to violence. And third, by consenting to violence silently. So it's like watching somebody doing it and not doing something to stop it. Consenting. And he also says in this beautiful verse that the acts of violence are instigated by greed, anger, confusion, or a combination of these. And the consequences of such acts are determined by the intensity of the greed, anger, or confusion that provoked them. So, three ways violence is carried out. three mental conditions of greed, anger, confusion underlying the violence, and the three degrees of intensity also he mentioned. He said mild, intermediate, and extreme. Mridu madhya adhimatra. Because of the innumerable currents and the cross currents which are influencing our internal and external environment, we express our violent tendencies many ways. So, the purpose of this elaborate discussion by Rishi Patanjali is to help us detect the element of violence in ourselves, not to judge others. We are responsible for our path, not to check others. We need to identify the instigating factors. We need to look at the intensity also. This will help us design a plan for Pratipaksh Bhavna. Cultivating thoughts that oppose and eventually nullify afflicting thoughts. If a violent thought comes, negative thought comes, how I'm going to nullify it? The cultivation of thoughts, contrary to those that need to be eliminated, begins with realizing that negative tendencies and actions bear unending fruit of pain and suffering. Okay? Unending. Because many of us have mastered the art of justifying our negative tendencies. We lose someone and we justify that we love them and that's why we are hurting. That's why we keep on creating those painful thoughts in our mind. And once we have mastered the art of ignoring the voice of our heart or the inner core, we fail to realize that our negative tendencies and behavior have painful consequences. If a negative action is propelled by intense greed, anger, confusion, or a combination of these, and if it's carried out intensely, then unending pain quickly follows. We learned that earlier. You can go back to the verse number 12 to 16 in this chapter. If we somehow manage to escape it in our current lifetime, this pain will manifest as an integral part of our future destiny. As I said earlier, that mind is going to go with us. Whatever we are putting in there, it's going to go with us. As a human beings, right now, we got to have the plan to keep on cleaning this mind of ours with these practices. Two kinds of negative tendencies, Swalap Pratipaksha and Mahapratipaksha. Swalap Pratipaksha is the little enemy and the Mahapratipaksha is the big enemy. So afflicting thoughts of a gross nature can be easily detected. They belong to the first category, can be destroyed or transformed with the practice of Kriya Yoga, Tap Swadhyay Ishwar Pranidhan. But afflicting thoughts of a subtle nature, which cannot be so easily detected, belong to the big category, Mahapratipaksha. And they should be destroyed or transformed only through meditation. The desire to eliminate our negative tendencies, both little and big, begins with the contemplating the unavoidable consequences of these tendencies. Let's stop it here. I see that almost 11:20. I have a little bit more to talk about on this verse, but I would like you to just contemplate, think about what we have discussed so far. Because there are negative thoughts which arise, how we are going to deal with it at our personal level. Because this is our journey. We need to take ownership of it. We want to leave this body with a lighter mind, cleaner mind, so that next time around we are at a place, and God promises that we will start this journey towards that ultimate goal sooner and faster also. So I have a little bit more to say about this, but next week now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.